Telecom continue to rule the world. Uzi goes godlike.
This is what peak League of Legends looks like.
Welcome back to the last day of MSI 2021 with one last lovely look at our home in Reykjavik, Iceland. 2 weeks ago, 11 of the world's greatest rosters began the global gauntlet to find our top 2 teams. We've seen heartbreaking defeats, blossoming friendships, and the rise of developing regions, and it all led to our final 2 teams, Damwon Kia and RNG. This is a battle for regional glory, for global acclaim, as we arrive at the final stop on our MSI journey. I'm Sjokz, honored to be joined by Caedrel and by Lyric. Lyric, thank you for joining me. What an MSI it's been so far.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. And yeah, it's been an amazing MSI, I think, especially looking at this final. It's one where no result's going to surprise me. Both teams look strong, but neither look impenetrable.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key takeaway. We have the final that we expected, but not necessarily the road that we expected for them.
Yeah, I think coming into the tournament, we had the 2 favorites of Damwon and RNG, and them in the finals is not a huge surprise. But I think the big surprise is how vulnerable they look, right? Both of them dropping games. They've dropped games in Rumble Stage 2, even in the semifinals as well. Exactly.
Let's look back at our semifinals. As we mentioned a moment ago, it's been quite a road to reach our final today, with RNG toppling the rising PSG talent on Friday. And yesterday, we were treated to some silver scrapes courtesy of Damwon and Mad Lions. A bit bittersweet silver scrapes for me personally, but still a phenomenal victor in Damwon. Lyric, I feel like they really showed their class in those 2 games.
Yeah, the thing that surprises me the most, right, is the fact that when you come in such heavy favorites, when you come in such winning so much, when you fall behind, how you're going to hold up with the adversity and the pressure. Damwon held up well because in Game 5, they went back to what they were strong with, and they had a pretty convincing win in that game.
Yeah, and Mad Lions were at match point for a second. I think all of the European fans were like a moment of silence where like, they're on match point. They're 2-1 up against the world champions on the brink of one of the biggest upsets ever, you'd argue, in the West almost. But they lost the last 2 games. They were kind of stomps, I must say. Damwon found their footing in the mid-jungle, and from there, they just kind of took over the game. And Ghost and Beryl definitely not inting as much as they were in the first 2 games.
No, but I think when you look at the victories from Damwon, the 3 games that they did win, they were so convincing. On top of the fact that this is the resiliency you expect out of a world champion, and they are the deserved finalists today. It does mean we say goodbye to the Mad Lions, gone but not forgotten. To me, and of course I'm speaking from an LEC perspective just a little bit, they did better than I expected of them, especially, you know, the story of Worlds last year. Now, they took a little bit of time, but I feel like they really found their footing versus RNG and versus Damwon.
I think they improved a lot throughout the tournament. I think that a lot of European fans were like, Rogue should be there, G2 should be there, all those kind of things. And Mad Lions, I think the best case scenario we expected from them was semifinals. We didn't expect them to make semifinals and almost take down the world champions. Yes, they looked a little bit shaky in the Game 4, Game 5, but they almost beat them, right? So massive props to Mad Lions. I think that's probably one of the best outcomes we could have expected from that roster.
Yeah, Lyric, they were able to beat every single team in the tournament. That must count for something.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you think that coming into this tournament, some people were even rating them below teams like C9, being like, hey, C9 has perks, this team's incredibly strong, maybe PSG can show up, you know, living on the Flash Wolves legacy, and they put on a good performance, beat everyone, and again, almost made it to finals, so I think they can be proud looking towards Summer Split in Worlds.
Absolutely that, but you have to be the strongest if you want to make it to the final. And throughout the tournament, we talked a lot about the meta and, you know, the interesting picks that we saw coming out, and that leads us into today's MasterCard question of the day from Davidas KO. Why don't we see decent clear assassins like Kayn, Evelynn, Diana at MSI 2021? And what is the biggest problem about those champions? Now, we did get one Diana at least.
We did get one Diana from Canyon because he was banned out a lot and he was picked on the 4-5. Now, I think the biggest 2 things a jungler needs in this meta, it needs early skirmish power. Things like Udyr, Rumble, Morgana can actually fight early, or they can play through lanes, and they need fast clear. I think these champions like Kayn and Evelynn, they do have fast clear, but they're very selfish. They don't win many early skirmishes, so they can't contest around neutral objectives or early crabs. So they're very around, it's almost like your team has to play around the jungler rather than your jungler playing around the team.
The meta of the jungle has become a bit stale, I will admit. So hopefully, Lyric, today we see the 2 junglers get banned down to the point where they have to go for these.
I mean, that's the thing, right? They could get banned out. We could see Wei end up on something like a Lilia or a Volibear. And then, like we just said, Cannon's already played the Diana. He's also picked the Graves. Maybe we get something a bit spicier.
Maybe we do. But boys, while Mad have been eliminated, we cannot forget about Armut. It's time to take a long, long look at some of the best Armut stairs we witnessed at MSI. Sadly, he has stared his last stare. This is one of my favorite parts of MSI and international events. You just see like the quirkiness coming out of the players of every region.
So majestic, isn't he, in these stares? He never backs down as soon as the camera's in his eyes.
Down. He did have some tweets sent out after the series saying he wasn't happy with his performance. But yeah, you know, it's a learning curve. If we look where he started at the beginning of the LEC this year.
Yeah, definitely struggling at the start of the split, getting solo killed here and there. He even said himself at the start of the split he didn't feel like he had the comfort. So he has a little bit of burnout because he was grinding really hard to make sure he could stay in form. And they won the split and they got this far, so mad respects to Armored.
Definitely so. And as we continue to look back at some great moments from MSI, we also reach out to you on Twitter to find out who the best drive to victory presented by Mercedes-Benz was. And there was, in fact, a very clear favorite, Fudge's Unreal Irelia versus the Mad Lions in the final game of the Rumble stage. Lyric, I mean, it's always great to see a top laner picking Irelia.
Yeah, exactly. This is a champion that requires high confidence. It has a very high mechanical skill threshold, tons of playmaking, and that's something that Fudge has shown throughout this tournament. I love that he comes in with the confidence to pull off this pick, and he executed it great. Yeah,
more than impressive, especially the Lee Sin as well. The kick against RNG was just fantastic play from Fudge on carries, especially when people considered him a weak top laner at the start of the split. So this MSI has had lots of great surprises for many players, I think.
Exactly, and you know, we've seen the arc for many players indeed. And I don't know about you guys, but I am starting to think that top laners play the game a lot better than I previously thought when I only saw them on tanks.
They have hands.
They have hands. It's been confirmed at MSI. Now, MSI is wrapping up today, sadly, but don't be sad. We have a lot of League of Legends content. You can listen to the Rift Reactions podcast. It is live now, and it will break down all the best stories and moments behind MSI with Travis Gafford and Emily Rand. And judging by the games that we've had so far and the games we'll have today, they'll have a lot to talk about. Also, if you checked out the first episode, you were able to vote in the Spotify app on who was going to win MSI. And the crowd at home said that Damwon is going to take home the MSI trophy. The next episode is coming out on Wednesday. But yeah, Lyric, I know you're pulling for RNG here, but the crowd has voted for the world champion. No surprises there, I guess.
I mean, no surprise, the poll is close, but I actually expected it to be a lot closer, right? Because this one can really go either way, but, you know, crowd fan vote, sorry, but you're slightly off.
You're slightly off. We'll see today. Now, one thing left before we get into the match intro, our final Icelandic fun fact of the day. We are taking a look at the Icelandic esports scene. Now, Iceland has a rich history of professional players from multiple genres across a lot of games such as Overwatch, CSGO, and Fortnite. Now, MSI 2021 and the Valorant VCT Masters are actually the first ever international esports events to visit Iceland, and they both took place in the beautiful Laugardalsjöll Sports Center. It's been a pleasure talking you through all of these Icelandic fun facts of honestly one of my favorite host countries ever for an international event, and we'll be looking forward to the Valorant Masters as well. Today in Reykjavik, in this arena, we are watching League of Legends history in the making as LPL's RNG try and take the MSI title and take back an international title from the LCK and Damwon Kia. So let's talk a bit about the stories of both teams. Lyric, talk us through the history and the expectations for RNG.
So this one's a weird one, right? Because 2020, very tumultuous year for RNG. They didn't make any international events. Come into 2021, they bring in two very young players in Wei and Cryan. They keep Gala, who has kind of always been up and down, and then they move Xiao to the top lane, a big question mark. So no one had any high expectations for this roster, but Spring Split starts. They have this three-man core of Wei, Ming, and Xiaohu. It's all about smashing through the top side and utilizing that side pressure to pretty much carry through games. They ended the regular split in first place, but then they come into playoffs and they change things up a little bit. They start playing more around bot side. They leave Xiaohu on an island, and because of that, they actually end up going down to FPX. They keep the versatility up in play style in their next best of fives, but both against top esports and EDG, they go to game 5 and they always fall back to playing around Xiaohu. And luckily, that diversity in the final against FPX is what got them here to MSI with such a dominant performance. But again, that flexibility in RNG's playstyle is something that I think is very strong.
Oh yeah, definitely agreed. Playing through sides, different champion pools were just massive props for RNG, especially like backdooring teams in best of 5 games to make sure they win the series. And yeah, you could see the flexibility in the finals. They were kind of early rotating Jace away from Nogari, and then that plan wasn't working as much for Xiaohu because of the Irelia and things like this. So then they went back to, okay, we'll put Xiaohu on a weak side, put him on a Gragas top into Jace, and let's play for bot lane where Gala and Ming were definitely shining.
Definitely so. We'll dive a bit deeper into the play styles as we continue this countdown, but just the story of RNG as well. They won the MSI title back in 2018. And if you look at that tug of war between the LCK and between the LPL rather, now that Damwon Kia has won the World Championship, they want to regain that title. But let's talk about their opponents today. Damwon Kia, they arrived at MSI, as said, as our reigning world champion with their eyes set on back-to-back international titles. Now, you've heard it a couple of times before, but they would only be the second team to complete winning World Championship and MSI after SKT from their own region, and those are big shoes to fill.
Oh yeah, definitely. 2015, 2016, 2017, it was the era of SKT, Samsung, and KOO Tigers, right? It was just LCK dominance non-stop. You come into 2018 and 2019, it was the rise of IG and FPX, and the meta started shifting to more of a chaos style. Innovation became the name of the game, and Europe was actually rising in the ranks as well. But now, Damwon, they're basically carrying the whole of the LCK on their backs, it feels like, throughout all of 2020 and now into this year. LCK and LPL both have 2 MSI titles, respectively, so whoever wins out will get the lead.
Yes, and the last time, Lyric, that the LCK won the MSI title was in 2017. So 4 years in the making. I'm sure that the fans are hungry for that title.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. And, you know, thinking to the next year, 2018, when RNG won, it was Ming and Xiaohu against Khan in the final when he was on DRX. So definitely a bit of repeated history here. And, you know, LCK trying to write another new chapter in the story. They just won Worlds, so obviously LCK is feeling good. But if Damwon specifically can pick up this MSI championship, I think, right, it's going to open up a lot more questions of comparisons to teams like SKT in the past.
No, I totally agree with you. I think it'll all depend on how they show up in this final as well. And I love that from the two teams. We see kind of a reflection of a global landscape in that you have experienced players, you have players that are searching for that first international title like a Khan, then you have younger players who get their first chance at MSI, and it's all coming together in this final. And in order to pave their path to the MSI title, Damwon will need to deconstruct RNG. So let's dive a bit deeper into the analysis of these two teams and the play styles. Now, Lyric, I'll let you kick it off for RNG, and it seems to me that they've been quite the chameleon when it comes to how they want to play the game.
Yeah, RNG are super interesting to me because, again, throughout LPL, it was all about snowballing through topside. We come into their playoffs in MSI. It's a lot more bot-centric, I would say, in terms of who their carry is, but it's still always been about dragging teams around the map, playing with these long side lanes. We've seen the backdoors time and time again. We've seen them kind of trading around the map, but up against PSG, it became a lot more versatile in their last series, right? It was a lot more about the 5v5 team fighting. It was all about Braum, and I think RNG have shown that they're a team with many different tools and many different ways they can win the game.
Yeah, we see that here in the example. I think we showed it on broadcast with Emily as well. The fact that they find creative solutions even if they are in a losing position.
This is the thing with RNG. They love to play through side lanes. The exact same thing happened to Cloud9 with the backdoor-centric kind of esque play that they come out with, and it's all come down to Xiaohu and the split pushers, and I think this is one of the big driving factors as to why RNG are finding these wins, because either they take the fight or they just go for the opposite side of the map and trade it off. And you can see it as well just in the stats irrespectively. I mean, RNG don't really play so much towards the early neutral objectives. Yes, they do like the Herald for the Herald usage and towards the top side, but they don't necessarily really like playing around the dragons. And you can see behind us, the Drake percentage for RNG is actually a lot lower than Damwon, and the first Drake percentage is also a lot lower than Damwon. Damwon happy to take the Drake, happy to take Heralds whenever they want, but RNG love the Herald for the early gold to crack open early towers. You'll see Xiaohu get tier 1 top and then move towards mid, translate his pressure, but they don't really fancy going for the early dragons. You even saw against PSG in the semifinals. First couple of games, RNG didn't even have a single Drake up until around 15 minutes, and the games progress really, they go really quite long, 40-45 minute games, because RNG need to stack up the Drakes. They're already 2 down, and then you do end up with the Cloud Soul that they did have, but the games went on longer.
Seems to me you can't let that happen versus Damwon because they love to pick you off around that dragon.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the weird thing about the meta, because you have RNG who loves to play through sides, but then if you play through sides and you drop early dragons, then that means that you're eventually forced to fight, or eventually you're forced to contest these dragons, right? So RNG, when you do go for those Cloud Souls, or you do go for the Baron at 30 minutes, they're going to start going into your side lanes and keep kind of picking away at your inhibitors and Nexus towers.
Yeah, a little follow-up there for you, Lyric. Do you think that they'll be able to change their style and maybe have more caution around those early dragons, knowing that they're up in possibly 5 games versus Damwon?
It's funny because do I think they could? Yes. Do I think they will? That's always the big question mark with RNG or with any team from the LPL, because again, I feel like with how they've been performing, especially their bot lane, they definitely should be able to pick up some early Drakes. But again, I feel like RNG just likes that Rift Herald and likes that the gold they can get around the map maybe a little too much.
Yeah, and I think that early objective control comes down to the mid jungler of Damwon, right? They're the driving factor in the early game. Showmaker and Canyon, you get them on things like Sylas and Rumble. They basically define the early game for Damwon. I think the Damwon's side lanes, I think Khan's been consistent in a Wei, yes, he had a few up and downs throughout round 1 and round 2, but he's almost like a consistent factor. Give him an R, give him something like a Sion, he'll be fine. The bot lane's been the biggest worry, and I think that's where Canyon and Showmaker can kind of cover that, get the early dragons, and they're the biggest win condition, I think.
Canyon and Showmaker have been really the anchors, I think, for Damwon in their run at MSI here. And what I also find pretty interesting is like champion diversity. Lyric, yesterday we talked about, hey, Damwon hasn't showed that much, but we know that they can show more, and they did yesterday. How confident are you in the champion diversity for RNG? We know from the LPL that it's mostly on Xiaohu and Ming's shoulders, the champions they pull out. The rest of the lanes are pretty stagnant in terms of champion pools.
Yeah, and I think overall in a lot of metas, usually where champion pool diversity matters most is the mid lane. And that's where we can see is a big worry for RNG with Cryin. And where, like you guys just said, Showmaker's been popping off. Jace yesterday, Yone yesterday as well. So I think the one area where you can really express yourself with a lot of wild counter picks is where Damwon Kia are favored.
Yeah, and I think that it feels like Damwon's strengths cover RNG's weaknesses, where their mid junglers are strength, whereas RNG's weakness has been Cryin. And then the opposite side, RNG's strength in their bot lane covers Damwon's weakness in the bot side, right? So I think there's a very contrasting, stark difference here that you've got the mid jungle winning for Damwon, bot lane winning for the side of RNG. Maybe top lane could be the X factor for this role, or whichever one gets ahead will be the key defining factors. You can see on the screen the last time these two teams faced off against each other, RNG got the better hand of Damwon's bot lane. Mad Lions yesterday in the best of 5 also got the better hand of Damwon's bot lane. And now I think a good thing to take away for Damwon is the fact that in game 4 and game 5 they found a way to neutralize that, to stop the snowball. But just in essence, if RNG can get away with this kind of bot side advantage early game, they're just going to run away with it.
They would be very happy to play these games again and then play them out the same way, because they did go up 2-0 over Damwon, and that's a huge boon when you come into this best of 5. We'll dive a bit deeper into the bot lane, I think specifically for Damwon as well, as it's been contentious, but I do want to go down lane by lane to kind of look at the strengths for either team. Let's start in the top lane. Big point coming into this year was Khan stepping in for Nagari on the lineup of the world champions, and he's up versus Xiaohu, a very flexible player who's also on the precipice of history today, as he looks to become the first player ever to win an international event in 2 different roles. Lyric, how do you think they will stack up in this best of 5?
I definitely favor Xiaohu. I think Xiaohu right now is performing exceptionally. And the thing is, Xiaohu does have that. He's more diverse in his playstyle, right? He can bring out the Lucian, completely carry the game, take over that side lane. He could pull out something like the Gragas or maybe even Narn, play more for those team fights. He is willing to play for opposite sides of the map, as we've seen in LPL, can just play for himself. He has a lot of different tools to where, for me, Khan is all about playing for his team. It will never be about him. And it's can Khan find those places on the map where he can really make a big impact. Yeah,
and you can see behind us on the screen here, just looking at the champion comparisons. I mean, you've got Lee Sin, Nar, and Jace, which are the staple 3 meta top lane champions, which both of them obviously play because they need to be flexible. And if you want to be the best team in the world, you have to be flexible. Then you look at the pocket picks. Now, Khan, more towards this kind of bruiserish, team fighty, tanking style, things like Aatrox, Sion, and the Ornn, whereas Xiaohu seems to have remnants from his mid lane days with the Lucian, the Ryze top, all these carries, the Gragas notably in the finals against Nogari to kind of negate and neutralize the top side. But stark difference, I mean, Khan's kind of considered this weak side player, but I think he's having a pretty good tournament on carries as well. But Xiaohu definitely more of a strong side player, definitely more resource into Xiaohu. Top tower gets heralded straight away, whereas Khan can play things like the Sion and you can play towards the bot side of the mid jungle side of the map.
Yeah, and you can see champion pools, and you can tell a lot about a player in the champion pools when they get pushed or when they get banned out. What is kind of the next level that they go for? And I believe that's a point you made earlier in rehearsal as well, Lyric, about the jungle. You know, when you look at the 2 junglers we have here, Canyon and Wei, when you see what they go for when their primary picks are banned out, is really telling of the style they will bring to the Rift.
Yeah, I find it very funny that when Wei gets banned out, he goes towards things like the Olaf and the Volibear. And then Canyon on the opposite side, the picks get taken away. He's on Graves and Diana. This man wants to carry. These 2 junglers are very different in how they play the game. Wei's going to be way more lane focused. Canyon is going to be all about stealing away those camps and becoming a big damage threat. And I feel like it's why a lot of people still consider him the best jungler in the world.
Yeah, and you can see the stark difference in the meta champions. Similar to top where you've got Lee Sin, Nar, Jace. In jungle right now you have Morgana, Udyr, and Rumble, right? Yeah. Canyon obviously favoring the Udyr the most, whereas Wei actually least played is the Udyr of those 3. Most played for Wei are things like the Morgana Rumble, whereas Canyon will only really shy away to those ones, notably Rumble and then Morgana when Udyr's taken away. And I think that you can even see it from last year. You know, Canyon's skin for Worlds was Nidalee, so maybe we see a Canyon Nidalee in this final if he does get banned out towards a 4-5 or if they drop jungle. But I think that Canyon obviously, I think, still is the best jungler in the world. He's very versatile. I think he can play around lanes and he can play towards a farming style, but definitely more of a selfish player, I would say, than Wei.
Caedrel, tell me how both these junglers and the way they like to play the game fits in the systems of both these teams.
Yeah, and you look at Damwon, It will take Damwon first. It's all about mid jungle. It's all about Showmaker having the push. He holds Canyon holds hands with Khan and Showmaker to move around the map, and that's how he gets objectives. He either uses his early vision from his bot or his top having the push, or his mid having the push to invade, using them to help him invade, and then he just takes away camps and gets himself ahead. Whereas Wei likes to play more around lanes, more teamfight oriented kind of player. And as you can see on the series yesterday, Mad Lions versus Damwon, Canyon always favored more towards the Rumble when the Udyr was taken away. That comes down to the teamfights. Showmaker can always get the mid push, and I think Showmaker and Canyon, we're going to say it hundreds of times, but they were the biggest driving factors to how they won this series.
Oh, Lyric, yesterday, Showmaker, I mean, it was unbelievable. And I think the whole tournament, but specifically in this best of 5 and in the final 2 games, he showed his class to the Mad Lions and to the world.
This guy's just putting on an absolute clinic at this tournament. He's by far and away the best mid laner. Maybe you could even make an argument the best player, but one thing that really amazes me is his laning phase, because he's picking things like the Sylas, like the Yone, these champions that should fall behind early in matchups, and he's staying even, getting ahead, or making large impacts on the map while not losing anything at all.
No, I saw Ashley Kang tweeting that there was actually something they say about him, because there were all these pictures of him in the series when Damwon lost a game and then they lost game 3, and then before game 4 and 5 he's called a little giant because he keeps Damwon on his back when it is needed. He also said in the post-game interview when asked by Dash about kind of what the system was like in Damwon, he said, yeah, well, last year I feel like I was more of a supportive mid laner, and I was like, I was watching different games. And he said now he was really going to go for picking those hyper carries and really doing a lot for that team, and that's very telling, I think.
Yeah, and you can see it in his champion pools, right? Lyric just touched on it. He picks things like the Sylas or the Yone, which is supposed to lose lane in the early game, and you expect him to be down a few CS, maybe lose his TP advantage, and then he can't actually use it to side lanes. But it's the opposite that's happening. He's either, his turret's full in platings, he's still got TP up, he's even in CS, and he's already base, which allows him to TP towards side lanes. And when you pick these kind of nature of champions, you want to get involved in skirmishes, you want to get to like one-item spikes, and he always seems to do it without being punished.
Crazy.
I think, yeah, it's crazy to see him play.
Yeah, you think, oh, he must be down in CS, and you look down and you think, oh no, he's up again. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I think in the mid lane we have to give it to Showmaker over Cryin. I think that is fair. But when we move to the bot lane, I think here we have a very contentious topic. The bot lane performance of Ghost and Beryl versus Gala and Ming so far. Lyric, what do you make of kind of what happens with Ghost and Beryl in some of these games where they seem to just come back to lane and just die to respawn immediately?
I feel like this is a question not even Damwon Kia can answer for themselves, because it's so weird, right? Because we've seen both of them have great games. I think game 5 yesterday specifically we saw from Beryl was absolutely insane. He was everywhere on the map, consistently holding hands with Canyon, finding picks, getting objectives. But then there's just so many moments where he's engaging alone, he's getting vision by himself. Again, Ghost with the play yesterday where he walks to lane and just gets caught out. It's just very confusing for them, because I definitely think they've shown us that they can be a stable bot lane. We just need to see it here today.
Yeah, I think stability is the key for Damwon's bot lane in this game, because even against RNG, against Mad Lions, 2v2 kills are the name of the game. They just keep losing out on the 2v2. And when you expect a winning matchup in the bot lane, you expect the push, and you expect them to keep the push and be able to move towards mid. That's the threat of a winning bot matchup. But a winning bot matchup where you get 2v2 killed 3 or 4 times before 10 minutes is definitely not what Damwon need to aim towards. I think they need to neutralize bot lane, and I think this series against Mad Lions, I hope, is a good learning curve for them. Maybe I think things like the Nautilus for Beryl, he looks really off comfort, whereas when he's on things like Alistar, he looks a lot more solid.
No, absolutely. You can't be a liability if you're up versus Gala and Ming, who have played so well for RNG, both in the LPL and now also at MSI. So we've ran through, I think, a lot. We maybe forgot a couple of things, but all the lanes and all of kind of where the power lies for both teams. So let's boil it down to win conditions. And Lyric, you can take RNG. How do they take their second MSI title today?
So there's 2 big things for me with RNG. First of all is punish Damwon's early game mistakes in the bottom lane. We've mostly still seen them play around topside early in this tournament, but I think with what Damwon have shown straight away from that, we know Ghost and Beryl are going to make mistakes. So whether through draft, through vision, or through ganks, just punish that. And then going into mid game, just keep doing what you've been doing. Keep playing around these side lanes, push them in, steal away jungle camps, pull Damwon across the map. And I feel like that's been Damwon's biggest weakness as well, is Damwon really heavily over-indexes into grouping his 5. We see Khan constantly dropping waves in the side lane, and it feels like that's one way RNG can really close out this series. And as a little bit of a side note, as Caedrel was saying earlier, I don't feel like RNG can freely give up dragons like they were in their last series, because that puts you on a timer when you are playing around split push and side lane pressure.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that when you look at Damwon, it's just kind of like covering your weaknesses and playing to your strengths, which you'd expect. So first of all, having winning mid jungle, especially in the early game, if you have mid push, Showmaker having that can unlock your side lanes. Now, what does a winning mid jungle do for you? Well, yes, you can't really snowball a lead in terms of diving, unless they maybe make a mistake. You more so can cover your side lanes, right? So you have the push, you can move into a top or bot, and you can cover whichever lane is struggling the most. And I think that's very important, especially when Ghost and Beryl might be drafting losing matchups on purpose, or Khan might be playing these carries that you want to get ahead. Second one, match side lanes. Now, RNG, as Lyric was saying, loves to play through side lanes. Now, Damwon overgrouping is sometimes happening, but I think if they can draft things like the Sylas or the Yone to actually go towards the side and push it out and match players like Xiaohu on the side lane to stop that pressure before a fight happens, this could be key, because I feel like teams lose way too much on side lanes when RNG are forcing on them by giving up too much gold, resources, XP, or even towers and inhibitors at times, right? Even Nexuses at times, you know, valuing objectives over Nexus. So they need to have something that can match the side lane and stop that push. But I think Damwon playing towards that mid jungle, neutralize bot, and definitely get Khan on something that can contest topside and just keep this topside core of Damwon ahead.
Clear game plan for both of the teams, but I feel like we're going to have a really nutty best of 5 on our hands, because it can get crazy with RNG, and we've seen with Damwon as well. As we get to predictions, just a little bit of information. RNG has elected to be on the blue side. Now, I don't think that will influence your predictions, but maybe it does a little. Lyric, you can go first. Who will win MSI?
So I need to keep up the being the biased LPL caster on the desk, because I think RNG are going to win 3-1. And this simply comes down to the fact that I think RNG have more tools, as we've kind of stated here, right? We've talked a lot about how Damwon's win conditions come through mid-jungle. And even though it's the best mid-jungle in the world, I still feel like it's a very narrow win condition against RNG.
Yeah, and I feel like both these teams are no strangers to 5 games in a best of 5. Damwon have done it just yesterday. They've come off the back of that series, and then RNG have been to 5 games plenty of times in the LPL playoffs. But to me, I think this could be another series that goes to 5 games. I'm going to favor Damwon in this, and I'm going to say 3-2 to Damwon, which is a bit of a stretch, because I know that most people are probably thinking RNG is the favorite team here because they beat them in Rumble Stage 2. They look a lot stronger, and although they did look a little bit shaky against PSG, I think Damwon looked a lot shakier against Mad Lions, right? So RNG looked like the favorites coming in here, but I think Damwon will learn from their yesterday's series. They'll learn from it. They'll look at bot lane and they'll say, okay, Beryl on the Alistar and the Leona looks a lot more comfortable in the Nautilus. We'll adapt on the bot side draft. Khan looks like a rock. Let's keep him on things like the Lee Sin and the Gnar. They seem to be the priorities when they were first picking it. Canyon and Showmaker are our carries. Let's get them on things like Sylas and Yone. Let's not put Showmaker on Victor. Let's not put him on these mages. Let's give him agency in the game. And I think Cryan, which we haven't mentioned too much, I think he'll definitely struggle against Damwon its mid-jungle, because he likes to lean towards things like Twisted Fates, which help out their side lanes, which is natural. RNG's top and bots really like to win their lanes and push and look to snowball. So playing things like TF and Globals is really important for him, but I think Showmaker will shut him down in lane.
Okay, we will see indeed. Final note maybe before we move on. Lyric, what would it mean for RNG and for the LPL to win the MSI title? Not just win it, but also win it over the world champion coming out of the LCK?
I think it would definitely mean a lot, you know, for the LPL overall, with the fact that we weren't able to take the World Championship last year, but even more so for RNG, for the fact that, you know, in 2018 was supposed to be their dynasty year. They didn't win Worlds. 2019, they then go back to Worlds. Once again, not a good performance. 2020, they don't even make Worlds, or MSI doesn't happen. So I think RNG really need an international win, and it'll mean so much to the LPL fans and RNG.
Yeah, and I think for Damwon, especially, if they can handily win here, coming into Worlds, it will be really interesting, because you have the LPL, which has so many teams that could perform at MSI. You know, you have the teams like EDG that could come here, or FPX that might even perform just as well as RNG did. But on the side of Damwon in the LCK, Gen.G and SKT didn't look like they could match up to the likes of Damwon. So coming into Worlds, this will be really interesting, because if Damwon can win this and then may have a strong showing at Worlds, they can carry the LCK legacy. But LPL has a lot of teams that are going to show up at Worlds, so they need to make a statement here.
Yeah, I love that we're already looking forward to the World Championship because of the diversity of teams stepping up to the plate we've seen at MSI, and that is what it is all about. But at the end of the day, you need to win all your series, and you need to win that Game 5 like Damwon yesterday, and that is where the class of these teams really shows. Now we only have one final series separating us from the next chapter in League of Legends history, and we will see if it will be the LPL that takes over the torch for now on the international stage and RNG wins their second MSI, or if the LCK will continue their dominance with Damwon Kia. It is time for our show open, presented by MasterCard.
일단 두려움이라는 게 좀 말로 표현하기 힘든데
其实能到世界赛的舞台上打比赛去表现自己是每个职业选手的梦想吧。
Something that in the moment you're just feeling like it's a lot of adrenaline. You're nervous, you're pressure. But at the same time, you know that this is what you want to do.
上场的时候就是从那个走廊走过去，那个 UL 的人走下来
UL，
就看到你是不是都晕？看我的眼神都是。
我觉得那个 PG 的打也很猛，累爆你我。
那个是那个绿头发帕布
是吗？他那个标你妈的，是有那个自动导航系统。其实比起第二天的比赛来说，我更担心前一晚关了灯之后我要如何睡眠。
来比谁玩的多吗？
什么玩的多？
这样玩。
来，我觉得安吉之所以就是每天打打闹闹的这么有朝气，跟我是最大的功劳之。
我这个手链10块钱，我直接换了1年。10块钱的地胆货，你说的？我这一个能顶你40个，因为我只带了这一个。
一支队伍想走得更好，就像一个刚出生的孩子一样，需要一个严格的父亲跟一个温柔的母亲的。然后恰巧我们现在队伍，我跟辅助选手明就是很完美的扮演了这2个角色。MAD 应该是这次 MSI 我最喜欢的一支队伍了吧。
Ayoria is your breakout player of the 2021 this season.
I've always wanted to not live a normal life. I didn't like studying, I pretty much didn't like much things. But sleeping, I really liked sleeping. I think we are a team that really likes to have fun.
A really fun game. Yeah, I enjoyed it to the maximum.
Also, Mad Lions is a Spanish team, so I'm really proud to be in a Spanish team. But also, it's a team that is pretty hungry to win.
After 105 and 110, we can go in and get this one.
We really want to win, no matter what the cost is. Yeah, I think those are our biggest qualities.
Ooh, do you have your badge on? You're all good? Yeah.
제가 이제 어릴 때 닉네임을 지어야 하는데 멋있는 닉네임의 기준 일단 첫 번째 영어로 돼 있어야 한다랑 그다음에 두 번째는 이제 약간 제 기준에 그 당시 저 어릴 때 저의 기준에 약간 멋있어야 한다라는 그런 기준들이 있어가지고 쇼 가지고 생각해 보다가 쇼를 만들자 뭐 쇼를 보여줄 수 있으면 좋겠다 그런 뜻에서 네, 메이커를 합성한 것 같습니다.
This is the matchup that a lot of people were looking forward to. Someone Kia fall behind one decision.
RNG take down the world champion.
일단 패배했을 때 되게 좀 화가 많이 나는 것 같아요. 사실 이제 저희 팀이 어느 정도 기대치가 많이 높다 보니까 저에게 승리는 약간 당연한 해야만 하는 것이라고 생각하고 있고 언제부턴진 모르겠는데 제가 이기고 나면 그렇게 기쁘진 않고 그냥 다행이다라는 생각이 많이 들어서 일단 먼저 저의 활약상은 무난하게 뭐 특출나게 잘하지는 않았고 그냥 근데 유독 저는 좀 부담되는 게 좀 심한 것 같아요.
Going to be able to get some back, but PSG are going to do it. They defeat the undefeatable, and RNG will draw blood for the first time at MSI 2021.
Thank you. 人生中最快乐的应该是以前在那个 Flash Wolf 的时候，就是跟队伍拿到第1个联赛冠军的时候吧。 感觉就是有那种很多的成就感，然后跟队友一起携手合作，赢得胜利的那种感觉。5年了 ，S4 就在那，蛮怀念跟他们在一起的时光。因为在 LPL 2年的话，其实都是在比较后段班的位置嘛，然后。
I don't know what it is with Maple. You get him into an international competition, he just plays better.
跟现在的队友们可以配合得更好，然后拿到更好的成绩。在打了那么久，其实我也不会有什么压力。然后在国际赛的话，就是尽情的享受比赛，表现出自己的水平。
Absolutely beautiful set of games here. Good to see signs of life for PSG talent, but sadly they will not break the curse of the LMS. RNG are headed to the finals, waiting for their opponent on Sunday.
可惜了，还是要检讨失误。
就是感觉自己在做的更好一点，就能赢下比赛的话，那种感觉就是很可惜。觉得职业选手的话，就是你本来就不可能一直赢下去，就本来就是有输有赢，所以就想着下次的我能做得更好，我觉得这样就可以了。
My bottling.
Can you gank here, bro? Let's get it. Nice job. Nice job.
The people that I'm surrounded by, they help me so much that I don't want to be alone. Something I am really afraid of.
Destroy Mad Lions, and you have to feel Mad Lions just put one foot too many wrong. They are making their march to final.
They absolutely are. Humanoid trying to take matters into his own hands, but ends up running into 4 players, and Dalwan beat him down bad.
The Mad Lions will leave the stage for the final time.
To me, success means being happy. And people that are always there. If I'm happy in the life, I think I'm being successful with it.
Damwon Kia will face off against RNG tomorrow.
Damwon failed against RNG. They didn't look clean.
But Damwon, definitely the deserved victors today, looked dominant in their victories, and I'm excited to see them go up against the Titans in RNG.
사실 뭐 제가 살면서 가장 행복했던 기억이 이제 뭐 저는 이제 이미 월즈를 한번 우승했으니까 사람들이 뭐 그렇게 예측할 수 있을 거라 생각하는데 저는 사실 월즈 우승했을 때가 가장 행복하진 않았고 LCK로 승격했던 순간이 제가 생각했을 때는 가장 기뻤던 것 같아요. 뭐 LCK 올라가고 나서도 그렇게 좋은 평가를 받는 선수는 아니었어가지고 그리고 제가 이 위치까지 오기까지의 과정이 진짜 쉽지만은 않았어요. 저도 엄청 열심히 노력했기 때문에 이 위치까지 올 수 있었다고 생각하고 지금은 그때랑은 다르게 저도 이제 좀 경험이 많이 쌓였고 스스로에 대해 좀 자신감이 많이 붙어있는 상태이기 때문에 제가 좀 잘해서 우리 팀원들을 도와줘야겠다. 뭐 압박감보다는 좀 즐기는 쪽이 큰 것 같아요.
这次代表 LPL 出征 MSI 不仅是对我们安迪5个人的历练，我们更是承载了 LPL 的粉丝还有安迪的粉丝们的厚望。
제가 안 잊혀지는 게 중요한 것 같아요.
我希望我的后辈们能够记住，在你踏上职业道路上这一刻开始，你的目标就只有冠军。
must respect. This is it. RNG will take down the world champions in game 1 at the Rumble stage. They defeat the undefeatable.
Looks like this team is playing the best games they've played in their career.
Kia does it again. Dom1 earned themselves a spot at the top. Showmaker has been running the show since the very beginning. Total domination here, unleashed